Hey everyone, welcome back to the Dairy Raid. Happy spring break to those of you who have the ability to observe it. And I guess to the rest of us, happy, Thursday. The Badgers taking advantage of the spring break, so it gives us as fans a moment to reflect on what we have seen so far from spring practice and what to look forward to, which to me sounds like the perfect opportunity for a Q&A. Thank you to everybody who sent in questions, got quite a few of them on a range of Wisconsin football topics. And what I've decided to do is split them up between this episode, which will focus more on spring practice in general, and a separate written piece that will focus more on the big picture and off the field topics. Friend of the Dairy Ray, Richard Branch from the Buck Round, has suggested I should be writing more. And this will be a perfect opportunity for me to heed that advice. So, anyways, back to the topic at hand spring practice. What have we learned about the team so far after 4 practices? Let's get into it. All right. And the first question, well, we kind of led with it right there at the end of the intro, is 4 practices in. Why am I excited and why am I wrong? And that is a valid comment because certainly for the first 2 years of the Luke Fickell era, we got really excited around spring ball. And even when some negativity came about maybe some of the play of the players at spring ball, we were still pretty optimistic and pretty positive. And then the seasons have happened, and of course, it sucked the life out of us. So now 4 practices in, though, we're starting to hear reports and comments by the media members who are beaten down by the Badgers just as much as us, that are, it's positive, but in a different way. You're starting to hear things like, this might be the most athletic group of defensive backs we've had in a while. This is one of the most aggressive groups of defensive linemen we've had in a while. And they're liking what they're hearing from the coaching staff as they're coaching up the players. And on top of your usual, this player is making plays, the offense is maybe a little bit behind, the defense is showing flashes, your usual. And so even after 3 years of a downward trend, the team is finding ways to make us excited. And it's okay to be excited about a bad football team. It's okay to be excited that you hope your bad football team is going to become a good one. And it's okay to be excited that maybe your football team has finally turned the corner. It took 3 full seasons, but it's moving in the right direction. As I said in my preview of spring football, we're not learning a lot about scheme. We're not learning a lot about depth chart. It's all about, individuals making effort. But for me, we want to look at the meaningful trends coming out of spring ball. It is the different superlatives. And superlatives we usually don't hear about Wisconsin football. Athletic, fast. And you add on top of that, just the players seem more enthusiastic. Again, maybe it was addition by subtraction, who knows? But we've got a lot of new bodies. We've got players who've grown up in this culture, taking over and becoming leaders, both older players and younger players. And it's something to be excited about. We're going to temper our excitement. because it could all come crashing down at Camp Lambeau against Notre Dame. But it's okay to be excited. If you're instantly negative, you're always living in the negative, that's a horrible way to live your life. So be excited about the football team. They haven't given you any reason to be miserable yet. Wait until September. All right, next up, a question about the ever evolving structure of the coaching staff, and that is, what's up with all of this assistant coaches being added to the staff this year? And do we really need two quarterback coaches for four players, as an example? And yeah, that has been an interesting trend this offseason. We've added, geez, so many to even mention. I don't even have all of them because they haven't even all been officially announced yet. But we have an assistant DB coach who's focusing on the nickelback, Chris Worley. We have assistant receiver coach, assistant running back coach, at least one assistant offensive line coach. We might still have two. In fact, we do have two because they just brought in someone from Middle Tennessee State. We moved last year's assistant receiver coach, Blake Rowland, to assistant quarterback coach. We have assistant tight ends coach. Sure, we're going to get an assistant linebacker coach now that Tough Borland is officially the inside linebacker coach. You get the picture. And why? I understand the question is like, why do we need two coaches for one position group, regardless of the size? And it really comes down to just the delegation of the work. And so much of coaching is busy work. And whether it is typing up scripts or preparing scout cards or setting up the cut-ups, you name it. And of course, there are the traditional grad assistant roles, but with an assistant to the assistant coach, you can really specialize and focus on and delegate some of that busy work and just the overall structure of the position room between two people. And that really allows, for example, if Kenny Guyton is going to be really focusing on the run game aspects of the quarterback room, like Roland could be focusing on the passing game, and they can have two sets of eyes looking at the same players, and instead of trying to coach up two specific skill sets at the same time, we can separate and we can delegate. Also changes the approach to film study, where you can focus more on individual things, whether it be scouting, whether it be self-scouting, and more is better. And this is a way that we can invest in the players by giving them the best opportunity to be coached up, where there's a greater emphasis on development, more emphasis on details. It also can start creating a farm system for coaches. We saw it this year with Tough Borland being promoted. Is we know that once the Badgers start hopefully trending in the right direction, people are going to come after our staff. And I'm hoping that we're finally in a situation where we're going to start matching some of these offers. But the situation might be where we're going to lose a receiver coach, a running back coach. Well, you've already got someone in the pipeline who knows the system, knows the players, has been on the recruiting trail whatever, that they can step right in. This is also a great way to build for the future, where some of these assistant position coaches in the next couple of years are going to get their first position, full-time position coaching job at a smaller school, and they're going to move on. But you've created that relationship that down the road, you send that guy out into the real world, and then you bring him back. And you bring somebody back who has familiarity with the program, but has also gone out and getting real world experience. So I love the idea of bringing in more coaches, more voices. It really, to me, you would think it would dilute the room, but I think it brings the rooms closer together because there is going to be such more emphasis on detail, and it is only going to be positive. There's still a hierarchy. Everybody knows how the flow chart of responsibility throughout the program works. And just because there's more voices doesn't mean that there are too many voices. It's all about organization, all about detail. And I think this is only a positive thing for the Badgers. All right, next up, a question about the quarterback room, in that the quarterback room has been completely reset. Does this mean we are done with the 1-year rentals? And the obvious answer we'd like to say is yes, we are done. As usual, this is a new era of college football, so this year's room could be completely different next year in terms of the bodies. But what this reset has finally done after 3 years, and really a lot longer if we want to think back on it, it has laid out the clear vision of what a Wisconsin QB is right now and should be in the future. We can look back at the quarterbacks that have been here during Luke Fickell's time and see such a contrast between QB1 to QB2 to QB3 in skill set, and therefore in just overall ability to run the offense. But it goes back farther than that. There have been situations where Paul Chryst had his usual statue quarterbacks that he loved, your Joel Staves and your Alex Hornibrookes and Scott Tolzien and Jack Cohn. He was a little more athletic. You get the picture. And then he would get, or the QB room, regardless of the coach, would get a Bart Houston or a DJ Gillens or, God forbid, an Austin Kofensis, Deacon Hill, QBs that don't fit the mold of the starter, and the coaching staff didn't know what to do with them. Or if they were called upon to play, completely change the outlook and the role of the QB in the system, at least now. And if you take into account what we have seen and what we have heard about the QBs who are in spring ball right now, that Colton Joseph is your clear number one. But you can see where Deuce Adams fits in right behind him, and where Carter Smith and Ryan Hopkins fit in the offense. And while we haven't seen Deuce and Ryan Hopkins on the field so much, we have a feeling of how the offense is going to work. Because what we're hoping is that with Colton Joseph is we take the best of Carter Smith and the best of Danny O'Neal, and we throw some passing into it. And it all kind of builds from there. And then also you can look forward to, we got potentially Jack Sorgi, son of Jim Sorgi, in this 27 class that fits the same mold. Athletic, big arm, but can move. We see a shift, but we see a clear focus on what a QB should be. And sure, from QB1 to QB4, you're going to have to take some plays out. Going to have to maybe simplify things here and there, but you don't need to completely change the offense. We know what the quarterback's role is, and that has been the most important thing with this reset. So then, if Colton Joseph blows up this season and declares for the NFL draft, and Deuce Adams, whatever, any one of those three QBs behind decides they want to hit the portal. Carter Smith wants to hit the portal because he doesn't want to wait behind Deuce Adams. Whatever. We know what kind of QB we're going to be looking for going forward. And that narrows the focus of the transfer portal, and it makes things easier. It eliminates a huge chunk of QBs that we're not going to be going after. And whether it comes down to ability or anything after that, that's one thing, but we know the mold. So I think the reset is a good thing. Are we done with 1-year rentals? You can never say never, but I like the direction of the QB room. Does it change the expectation for what we expect from the QB? Does it change what we quantify as good enough? Because I've been hearing a lot of people complain about, Colton Joseph turned the ball over a lot, and I don't think a lot of people realize he was a sophomore when he was doing this. But regardless, and if we look back at quarterback play here at Wisconsin forever, with some notable exceptions, decent QBs at Wisconsin, typical Wisconsin QBs are going to hover in the 16 to 20 touchdown range, and they're going to hover in the 10 to 15 interception range. So you've got to ask yourself, would we accept 18 touchdowns and 12 interceptions from any one of the QBs on the roster right now? Say right there, the answer is probably no. I mean, that's Graham Mertz, good Graham Mertz level. And I remember how annoyed everyone was with Graham Mertz. But what if you add the Cam Newton element and add 500 yards rushing and 8 touchdowns, where you're suddenly going from 18 to 26 total touchdowns? And the touchdown to interception ratio changes drastically. Does that change how things are? I think it does. And it helps the offense overall, as we have said many times. A QB that can be a threat in the run game, can make the defense play sideline to sideline, has the ability to be more aggressive because they can beat the defense in different ways. It's going to lead to more turnovers, but it's going to create more opportunities in the run game, and that's where things can balance out. So with this complete reset of the QB room, can we reset the expectations, what we expect from the QB room, and use that to our advantage? I think we can, and I think we should. All right, next up, moving on from the QBs, but still talking about the passing game. And the question is, will we finally have a passing game in 2026? And who are you most confident in? And I took two questions here and kind of combined them. I had, are we going to have a passing game in 2026? And who do I think is going to be the leading receiver? And I think I can combine the two of these. And again, we've only had 4 practices. So take everything that I'm speculating here with a grain of salt. But when it comes to a reliability and a system fit, we've got a lot of players who can fit that mold. When we look at trust built up between the receivers and the quarterbacks, if we look at what we've seen in spring practice, just a little bit that we've seen of who's making the tough catches, who's making themselves the safety valve when the QB leaves the pocket or is going to go up and get a tough ball with the QB on the run. And one name to me jumps out based on what we've seen so far, and that is tight end Jacob Harris. He's made those tough catches. He is a big, physical, power forward-like tight end that can play inline, that has played in the slot, that has caught balls over the middle, and that has made diving catches on the sideline. QBs love that. Put the ball in his general vicinity, and he's going to come down with the football. So, who I'm most confident in the passing game from a receiving standpoint is Jacob Harris. Will we finally have a passing game in 2026? It all comes down to the coaching staff building the system around the players that we have and giving them the best opportunities to succeed. We have seen a bigger emphasis already on the intermediate passing game and using, dare I say it, air raid style routes and progressions to make the passing game simpler and more dynamic at the same time. Will we finally have a passing game in 2026? I hope. The pieces are there. We've just got to see it. And again, I guess we have to wait until the Notre Dame game to finally figure that out. But the pieces are there. Let's see how they do. And next question about the offensive line. And the question is, why move Kevin Haywood to right tackle and move a guard, P.J. Wilkins, to left tackle? Seems counterproductive to change everybody's positions. Not really. Because, one, it is showing us what the preferences are for the offensive line coaches at each of those positions. What do we mean by that? Okay, think of Kevin Haywood's player profile. He played left tackle when he first came here because he was the most athletic tackle we had. That doesn't mean he's a left tackle. He has a right tackle mentality. He has a road grader mentality. He's athletic enough to play left tackle, but he has the mindset of a right tackle. Put him at right tackle. A lot of people are concerned about P.J. Wilkins with his size and his build. We're thinking that he is not left tackle material. I mean, we've seen the video clip of him being able to stymie Nick Clayton, who's got probably the fastest first step of any of our edge rushers, and use his length to negate those kind of pass rush. He's built low to the ground, but he's got tremendous reach and wingspan. And so what we're probably going to be seeing more is, instead of that tackle trying to vertical set and work those edge rushers around the edge. It's going to be more, let's engage those edges quickly and beat them with positioning and then working them deep. And remember, the coaches have access to practice film on the transfer portal that we don't. And they have said that they felt that PJ Wilkins was misused at Ole Miss, perhaps. And they had film that showed potential at left tackle. Now, if it doesn't work out, the dominoes will fall into place. You can move Kevin Haywood back to left. You can move Emerson Mandel back to right. And you can put PJ Wilkins at right guard. You can put PJ Wilkins at right tackle. It's spring ball. It is a chance to experiment and to see what you have. They see the potential in PJ Wilkins. That's why they're going to try him out there first. If it doesn't work, they'll move people around. But they see something. And they have better access to the players than we do. And they see these players every day. So I'm not concerned. At least we are not hearing what we heard about Davis Hines in fall camp. We're not hearing anything close to that right now. And we're in fall camp. We're not even to fall camp. We're still in spring ball. First 4 practices is spring ball. So I'm not concerned yet. I like that. This, again, to me, it's showing the preference of how the staff views the offensive line and where they expect people to be. As spring ball continues, as we get into the fall, everything is going to line up. And when we get to the first game, the best 5 are going to be out there, and there's nothing to worry about with that. All right, so let's move over and talk about the defense. Next question up. From what I'm reading, I am concerned about our transfer corners and their ability to play man coverage. Why is Fickell bringing in players who can't do the job? Well, to that I say, what job are you expecting them to play or to fill? The defensive coaching staff they know who they're bringing in and why they're bringing in. Again, they have access to the film that we don't. And you say you're concerned about these transfer corners coming in and playing man coverage. Are they being brought in to play man coverage? Have we seen that? If we look at last season's film, certainly we didn't play a lot of man coverage. Again, we play a lot of cover 3. We played a lot of cover 3 buzz. We played cover 6. We played palms. We played cover 4. There was some man-to-man coverage in certain situations, but for the most part, we played zone. And what I see in someone like Javon Robinson is a bigger, stronger corner who can play downhill faster and more twitchy than Rico did last year. And that was Rico's biggest flaw last year. Rico would second guess himself, and he hit his knack at getting downhill on the ball that he had in 2023 was completely gone by 2025. And I think what they're asking is Javon Robinson, can he be a guy who can play from the top down? I think the answer is yes. The backside corner, it just depends on how you want to set up that position. You know, if you want to play with more like a cover 2 type corner who is going to be lower in the box and use the short side of the field and the boundary safety to take off the top half, kind of like we did last year with Yanni Hill and with Amelia Agard, I think we have guys like that. I think, Fletcher and Kai Bates fit that description pretty well. And you've just got Kai Bates is a fantastic athlete. Maybe he's your man cover guy on the short side of the field. Maybe Bryce West is going to grow into that match corner guy if he's not playing nickel the entire time. Which again, they're going to give him a lot of opportunities to play man on the slot. So don't believe what you're reading, because I think a lot of what you're reading is coming to the wrong conclusion based on what they're seeing. What Javon Robinson was asked to do at Arizona State is going to be different than what he's going to be asked to do at Wisconsin in general. And he fits what they want in a field side corner. Fletcher and Bates fit what they're looking for in a boundary corner. Bryce West fits what they're looking for as a nickel and a potential down the road field side corner. There's nothing to be concerned about, because we're being concerned about something that they're not being asked to do. And with the ability that they were able to pick up so many people and, first choice guys that they picked up in this transfer portal, means they got the guys they want. They have a role for them, and they know what they want to do with them. It's just not what you're reading. So they're brought in to fill a role in an ever-evolving defense. We're bringing downhill physicality, quickness in the turn and run, size to win battles. None of those say they don't have the ability to play man-to-man corner, and none of those abilities say they're being asked to play man-to-man corner. It's all good. We're going to be fine. I'm excited, again, about the most athletic and the fastest DB room that we've ever had through 4 practices. All right, moving on. Next up, why is it positive that the returning defensive linemen are standing out when we have all of these transfers? And trying to dig into how you're wording this, and maybe I'm going to get it wrong, but yeah, you hear Mike Tressel talk, and he really praised Charles Perkins and Nolan Veals for their work so far this spring. When we've seen film on the defense, we've seen Charles Perkins out there a lot in what appears to be the 3-tech role. Nolan Veals definitely seems more like a nose type, a 1-tech. And why is it a positive that returning players are standing out? Because that means that their development is working. And that Charles Perkins, a player who came in last season with not hype, but he was one of those potential breakout candidates. Injuries and whatnot stymied that development. Obviously, he tried to hit the transfer portal this winter and wasn't able to get in. So the fact that he's succeeding and buying in and potentially living up to the potential that he had last year, why is that a bad thing? And as we saw last season, the front 7 of our defense is successful through the sum of everybody's talents, not just the individual superstars or the individual starters, good players, whatever. So when you look at the transfers coming in Junior Poyser, Jake Anderson, Hammond Russell, and DeNigel Cooper, they are all filling a role. And it's them as a whole that is going to make us better. We lost a lot of depth. we lost Javier Suggs and Parker Peterson and Ben Barton and so on and so on. And why am I blanking on the last guy? It's going to kill me. I'm going to make sure I write it here on. So, you get what I'm trying to say. And so we need to replace the on the field production. We could do that in the aggregate. You need to replace the vibes and the leadership that we got from a Javier Suggs and a Ben Barton as a leader, etc. And so you get the system familiarity, showing that the player development is being successful, and you are still filling roles that need to be done without relying on pushing younger players through the system too fast. And you can have both. And I don't see why having both is such a bad thing. And again, maybe I'm reading into how you're writing that question a little bit wrong. Maybe it's more, why do we need transfers when we could develop players of our own? You just have to see how long. Charles Perkins is a senior. Nolan Veals, I believe, is a junior or potentially a senior. Not quite sure. Redshirt junior, maybe. And so it's showing that development within the system is working. But we still have roles to fill. We got a lot of young guys in Acapano and Arthur Scott, etc., below them that maybe are just not ready yet. But in a year or two, they could be the guys that we're talking about as returning linemen who are standing out. So let's take the best of both worlds and hope that is just a positive sign that EJ Whitlow is really doing a good job with our defensive line and will continue to do so going into the future. All right, and to wrap up this episode, I also solicited online questions in regards to two topics. One, football terms that are either poorly defined, we get multiple different answers, whatever, and or football buzzwords that the broadcasters and analysts love to use, but are often, again, misdefined, poorly defined, and used incorrectly. So this is going to be the first of what I like to call football explained, and try to redefine by giving the correct definition to these terms, so you can, when you watch the broadcast, be as frustrated as I am when you hear the broadcasters make the same mistake that they've made for 10 years and they're never going to get right. That's why a lot of times when I watch football, I turn the sound off. But anyways, so the first question that I got, and why I want to do it here in the video form, and if you're watching this on YouTube or listening to this on YouTube Music, now would be the time to switch over to the video playback. If you're listening to this on any kind of audio, go to YouTube and watch the video from here. And the question is, define the roles of the X, Y, and Z receiver in a pro-style offense. So what we're going to do here is we are going to go into huddle in the Dairy Ray classroom, and we are going to break down the X, Y, and Z receiver and how they fit in a pro-style offense. All right, so here we are in huddle, and to start with the roles of the three receivers in a pro-style offense, let's take it back to, I don't want to say the beginning, but the central the starting point of moving the chess pieces of the offensive players in a pro style offense, and that is the good old fashioned I formation. So, before we get into this, let's make this very clear. There is no one set definition of each individual player, whether it be the letter or the role or the position name. They are all different. What I'm going to go through here is my interpretation and how I am seeing these positions develop over the years, and the rationale and what the roles are of each of those positions as we are going forward. So, anyways, when we're thinking about the pro style lettering for all of these positions in the typical I formation, your backside receiver is the X, your strong side receiver is the Z, and your tight end is your Y. And when you live in this kind of two back world, this is your basic personnel group. And then you've got your running back and your fullback, your halfback and your fullback. And depending on how you call things, most teams will probably say the fullback is your F and your running back, your halfback is your H. That's the way I did it when I played in high school. We ran the wing T, but we still use very similar lettering for that. And it's a good starting off point from here. So when we think of the three receivers in an I formation in the pro style, again, your Z receiver is your, let's take the top off. He is our vertical threat. Okay. He's going to be running your fades. He's going to be running your posts. He's going to be running your comebacks. He's going to be on the front side. He wants to occupy the front half of the offense, right? Your Y is your tight end. He's your safety valve. Okay. He's going to be running your seams. He's going to be running your quick outs. He's going to be running your shallows. He's going to be running your corners, etc. Okay. That obviously is what a tight end is running. Backside, your X receiver, to me, the X receiver is more of your possession guy. He is going to be your slant, your dig, your crosser type receiver, using more size, strength, and route running, where the Z is more your speed, positioning, and agility route running, where your tight end is your safety valve. He is going to occupy the defense from tackle to tackle. In an I formation offense, an I formation in a pro style system, this is your starting point. Now, as offensive football has progressed, your Y would detach from the formation. Sometimes this would be a tight end who could flex out, but early on and up until maybe the last 15 years or so, you would put a receiver in this position. What's the difference between a Y receiver and a Y tight end? Well, the role is actually quite similar. It's just the spacing that's different. A Y slot in a pro style two back offense, to me, this isn't Tyreek Hill. Okay, this isn't Deebo Samuel. We're not to that point yet. This is your Wayne Corbett's. These are your, again, safety valve types that were comfortable, that can win with quickness off the line, but are going to be your safety valve over the middle, the guys who are going to run to the sticks and sit down, and it's going to be more positioning and route running. Your outside receiver, their roles are still very much the same. And your Z is taking the top off to help open up the Y. And your X is positioning here to make sure we can't get safety rotation over to the Z. And we keep that spacing there. Now, when we start getting into the single back world and we put that tight end back in line, then teams who would run multiple offenses and have players moving in and out, you'd have your bigger, stronger running back type be your single back, and now you've got a slot receiver. Now, an H slot in comparison to a Y slot, because you've got your tight end here running your tight end type roles. Now you've got a guy here paired with your X who, if we want to look at the front side here, we've got wins with speed and quickness and getting over the top, and we win with strength and with positioning underneath. This is the opposite, where your X is winning with strength, maybe a little bit deeper, but certainly more in breaking and to the sideline, while your Y wants to win with quickness and speed off the line to hold and create space in the hooked curl and the comeback range for your X. We're creating a matchup problem with an H. So in a pro style offense, that is typically when you're in a 3 receiver set with a tight end, your H is more of a speed guy and a more of a twitch guy in comparison to the X, which when you look at the opposite side is the same as the pairing that we have with the Y tight end and the Z flanker, just opposite. Now, when you've moved this into a gun for receiver type world, now it really depends on what your passing goals are with when you spread things out. And every receiver or every offensive coordinator has different roles that he wants for his 4 receivers. But if we now move into, we're thinking the air raid world with these 4 receivers, you're thinking your Y is going to be your bigger, stronger, can win over the middle, going to run crossing routes, going to run sticks, going to run quick ends, going to run corners. Your Z is going to be the type of guy who wants to run over the top and try to take the top off of defenses, get the landmarks and break down. You're going to see something very similar with the X. And then your Y is your speed guy. He's your mesher. He's going to run your deep digs. He's going to run your seams. He's going to run crosses. We're going to use him as a number 3 receiver in trips. The role expands as we spread things out, but it all kind of boils back down, if we look at it, with these 4 positions right here, all the way back to when we were in I formation. Because even in the passing game that you're getting from these guys, that you would have them involved in the passing game, you get motions and seams and flares and trying to get your halfback out in space, just like you would as if he was a slot. A fullback, we're going to get leaks and we're going to get flats and we're going to get angles, just like we would as a running back and 4 receivers. Tight end is similar to the wide receiver. It all kind of builds off of each other. So you can very specialize how you see every one of these receivers in your offense. You can run offenses that are seen to be on completely different ends of the spectrum, and they still boil down to these 3 spots that we have here, and then the gray area that lives in between these spots is where we get the different roles as those receivers move out of the box and into space. So hopefully that, while I know is going to confuse some people because I went from 3 receivers to talk about 5, 6 different roles, it shows you that even in a run heavy offense, you have very specific roles for the receivers. So, anyways, I think from there we are going to call it a day. And I'm going to turn the frame off. There we go. So you guys don't have to see that while I wrap things up here. And thank you to everyone who sent in questions for the Q&A and also the Football Explained section. I'm going to try to keep adding those to the end of these audio focus episodes, add a little bit of variety, maybe stimulate the conversation a little bit more. As I said in the beginning, this Q&A is going to have the companion piece that where I answered some more questions that again fit more of the a big picture type topics that will be up tomorrow around the same time on my Q&A or on my Substack, excuse me. So if you didn't see your question answered here, maybe it's over there, and I encourage you to have a read. And while you're there, check out some of my other written work, maybe considering subscribing, because like I was told at the beginning, I should be writing more. I'm going to try to do that. It's a good way for me to kind of break up the long off season. And as always, if you want to hear more kind of real-time commentary, you could follow me on Twitter, where I've been giving my notes and comments on the practice footage we've seen so far. Kind of as soon as we see them, I try to compile my notes and break down what we see. So when you actually look at the practice film, the little bit that we see, you actually know what you're looking at and what to look for. And so when the Badgers get back onto the practice field next week, we'll continue to do that. Plus, it's a chance you get to read more of my witty commentary in a real-time fashion. Anyways, enough with the plugs. That's it for me today. Thank you as always for listening or for watching, and we will see you next time.